Hello friends, I'm Colonel Failure and this is another quick preview look at Transport Fever. We're about halfway now in between when the game was originally announced and when it's scheduled to be released, which by current estimates is somewhere around the tail end of 2016. Maybe it'll be a bit later if it needs a bit more time. Hell, I'll wait until it's ready. But this is basically what the development studio have shown us so far, so I thought I'd condense everything into a single video so that you can get up to speed in no time flat. So let's kick off. So I think one of the first things I should probably point out is that Urban Games have stated that all the footage used and information revealed so far is from the game's alpha, which means that it's not complete yet. There's still quite a long way to go in its development, and as such it is subject to change, and not least of all, it might look better, it might look worse, might not have all of these features, but this is what they've revealed so far, so I think it's a good indicator of what they're trying to bring to us. Now let's start off with, obviously, the sexiest stuff in any transport game, the vehicles themselves. Now this C40 was used to show off some of the ways that vehicles are evolving beyond Train Fever. First things first, the vehicles now have lights, so trains have lights and they are context sensitive. So they'll display according to whether they're going backwards or forwards. So obviously you've got your red lights on if you're going backwards, you've got white lights on if you're going forwards. Fantastic. And they also react very well to being part of a multiple unit. So if your train doesn't turn round, then it will display the correct lighting scheme based on the direction that it's facing. Very nice. Vehicle skins have also been developed and to tie into the age of the vehicle and how much you've used it within your network. So over time, dirt and rust and grime and muck and whatever else it will add over the top of your train's design in order to kind of convey just the age of it and how beaten up it is. And I think that's probably going to help give a sense of just newness and freshness and look at this shiny new beast that I've just bought. Personally, and I don't think this will come as a surprise to anybody who watches my videos regularly, I'm quite a fan of decay. So I'm particularly looking forward to adding, like graffiti and rust and all manner of nonsense as custom textures over the top of the original skins. Personally, it's about atmosphere, and I've already got a scheme cooking in my head for something that might look quite appealing. Vehicles can now also be rehued. I think reskinned is probably too strong a word, but certainly rehued. You can set your own livery designs up within the game itself. No need to mess around with Lua or any coding tools or hang around in Photoshop all afternoon. No, instead you can change the basic color scheme from within the game itself. This is great. Firstly, it allows you to unify all of your rolling stock and all of your buses and trains and planes and everything else going on to look like it's all from one company. The glorious black and orange of Colonel Failure will soon be rolling around the countryside. However, I imagine that there's more options to be had if you actually get stuck into the modding side of things, which I'll come to in a couple of minutes. Likewise, you can actually add a logo to your train. Now, from the looks of what they've shown off in this video, you seem to have I imagine you'll get a limited selection to start with, but chances are these are actually relatively straightforward images. My guess is that they would be texture files that included the various iterative versions of each logo that you can then apply over the top of your train. So adding more through modding, again, should not be too big a hassle. Certainly that's one of the things I'll first look at. Another nifty thing that's been added for passenger vehicles particularly is you'll now be able to see passengers actually on board. That's a very cute feature. It's utterly unessential. It's not essential in the slightest. Never once. It was the horse and cart style of things in the original game that led me to believe that they were ghost carts being driven by nobody. However, I think it's a really nice touch. And it goes some way to kind of indicate that they're trying to bring a greater level of simulated, pretend reality to the game itself. Likewise, additional animations have been added to vehicles, such as doors opening, and I imagine there's a whole slew of bits and pieces that will animate on trains. But this seems to have been added primarily through the addition of the landing gear for aircraft, which, let's face it, is pretty fundamental. So yeah, it's all pretty good stuff. I'm very much looking forward to mucking about with all of it. In Urban Games' second dev diary, they talked about the addition of buildings to the game. Now, stations you've always been able to place in the past, and that's kind of been the fundament of the game. But now you can start with something small and simple, as you're probably going to start out in the kind of Steam age. But then over time, add more platforms and change the building and adjust the length of your track within the station itself to kind of reflect the expansion that goes on. You no longer have to remove the whole thing and then delete a whole bunch of buildings and mess around with your track and then plonk the thing back in and then swear because you've got it pointing in the wrong direction or you've got the road on the wrong... No, none of that. Now you can just upgrade the thing while it's still sat in place. Very useful, particularly for a bodger like myself. Even more exciting is the addition of terminals. Now, terminals are a fairly straightforward addition to any kind of train-based game. However, in this one, you can flip between terminals and the regular kind of side track stations that you get, and chop and change as you see fit. Fantastic. Both are completely upgradable. You can go from 1 to, well, it looks like here 8 or 9 platforms on a station. That could be a lot of fun. Likewise, you can remove the station and this is particularly helpful, is immediately replace it and the track will grab it and put it back in the right place. Previously, you would have to delete some of the track as well in order to then remake connections, and you'd always end up with a little kink in there, so you'd delete it and do it again. Maybe that was just me, but this is a welcome addition, is that the track is sensitive to what you're doing with the stations that you're placing onto them. Obviously, the same thinking is going to apply when it comes to airports, ports, bus stations, tram stations, and anything else that they've decided to throw our way. If you need to expand after the initial placement, it's incredibly simple to do. This also lends itself quite clearly towards modding, because it enables modders to kind of bolt together multiple stations in one place. So you might have a port with an attached train station, a train terminal, I guess. Or you might decide that your airport really needs a tram depot sat right on top of it. With a little bit of modding jiggery-pokery, this should be relatively straightforward. And one of the goals they've had is to make modding far more simple and far more accessible to people who've maybe not played around with it before. It was described in their third dev diary that mods are fundamentally split into 4 basic categories. You've got vehicles, scripts, campaigns, and construction. Sounds pretty straightforward. And within, let's say, construction, for example, you can accomplish adding a station or a bus depot or something along those lines, a bus stop, let's say, to a station within just 4 lines of script. Fantastic. You just have to set out where you want your passengers to get on and off and what each section of your building does. And it allows you to do really quite tremendous things. So we're shown this example within the construction category, and starting with a single building, you can add functions with just a few lines of code to add tracks or a road connection. Going a step further, and terrain alteration can be made. So in this example that they gave, one simple piece of land flattening is added to the placement of the building. Now, obviously it doesn't stop there. You can raise the land or maybe sink it below sea level. You can add various different textures around the outside of your station or your establishment. And you can even add businesses to it. So you can add industry to the outside of your station, guaranteeing an instant connection. This is really exciting stuff. Now you're no longer going to be limited particularly to where the initial industries start on the map. Now you can lay them out in a way that makes sense for you, in a way that kind of shows off the map, the transport network that you actually want to put together. This sounds fabulous. Likewise, as you expand your modding skills, you could create a station that has an optional covering for platforms. So you can give the players who end up using your mod the ability to toggle those covers on and off. I think that's a phenomenally good idea, and it really starts to push what urban games are doing towards the realm that City Skylines ended up in, where the workshop is full of just tons of different ideas that you can expand your game out in multiple different directions. And the fact that they're making the game workshop compatible this time around is a really big deal and fantastically helpful. So the team have stated that one of their major goals for this second game is making track and road laying as easy and flexible as possible. Far easier than Train Fever, that's for certain. Veterans of the original game may have to have a little sit down after seeing this next example. Brace yourselves. Now, such things were clearly impossible during the Train Fever era, and this is just madness, creating crossovers and points and switches and changes in elevation, with never a mention of a terrain alignment collision or not enough space. This is clear insanity. Likewise, the addition of extra junctions or points can be achieved very, very quickly. This is the kind of thing we really want to see, and based on, I mean, again, this is alpha footage, so it might end up being a little bit less free. Let's put it the other way around. It might end up being a little more restrictive, and that's okay. It's evident that what they're trying to do is improve on what was possible with the original game by making it a lot more straightforward. Likewise, bridge and tunnel building has also been given some much needed love, making complicated constructions, and things as simple as adding points within a tunnel, now relatively effortless. Likewise, crossings between road and rail have been significantly improved. Don't believe me? Check this nonsense out. There's no terrain alignment collision. What's going on? Road must be laid over rail? No, clearly not. This is fantastic. And this is, given that the game, this kind of genre of game is so heavily rooted in transport connectivity, given the title, it's really promising to see that the team are actually focusing on track and road laying to this level of depth. In the 5th development diary they've put up so far, new cargo, a new industry has been described. Now, in the existing game, you're limited to 7, 8 different items maybe that you can haul around using freight. And it's fine, but it's always felt a little bit limited. It's also always felt a little bit nebulous with regards to how you get these things to expand. And that certainly looks like it's going to be addressed with this new game. The stated 20 cargo types and 15 industrial buildings, along with 6 different variations of end product, is a clear indication that what they're trying to do is make the cargo side of things, the freight, the industry, just that little bit more meaningful. Instead of delivering goods to a town, now it will be something that is actually relevant to different areas of your buildings. Yes, the whole system is now far more involved and complex than in Train Fever, with each item produced trackable across its journey from mind to the end business. So in this example iron ore mine, we've got a storage area for harvested resources. That's all well and good. We're all used to seeing resources piling up on the station, but now they actually pile up in the industry themselves, allowing you to see where there is the potential for a pickup. And obviously, as the industry gets used more, the number of resources that are generated there will increase. Now, when an enterprising individual such as you or I places a station or a truck stop or a port or an airport outside that, those resources will then transfer to the goods waiting area, I guess, at that transport hub. And as those goods get picked up, they get moved off to wherever it is they need to be processed. And as before, the more an initial industry, a mine or a lumber camp or something along those lines, the more it is used, the greater the production becomes. And over time you'll see it expand with greater storage area, with more production going on. And this will be reflected at a glance. So instead of having to click on the thing and identify how much is being produced, instead you'll be able to see through animations just how quickly it's producing new materials. So taking the iron from the iron ore mine that we looked at a moment ago, we now combine that with coal at a steel mill. Now, much like the output hoppers, I guess, or storage area that we saw at the iron mine, we now also have inputs. So you'll be able to see when you're short of one resource or the other. And likewise, this steel mill also has an output storage area. So you'll see as it builds up, the process can continue. But already we're at step 2. Now in Train Fever, what you would now do is take the finished steel, which would become called goods, and take them to a town. Job done, you've made a bit of money, and the process repeats again. No, not anymore. Now we need to take this to a machine and tool factory. This one requires plastics and steel. Now, drawing my own conclusions there, it sounds to me like you've got your steel, which is going to be made of iron ore, and coal, which combine at a steel mill to make steel, and then oil, which goes to a refinery of some description in order to make plastic. So that's 3 separate raw resources, which turned into 2 combined resources, will then get manufactured again to get turned into this tertiary final good. I think that's phenomenal. I mean, that's great. This is the kind of networking that you want to put together that is going to be complicated and rewarding at the same time. To my mind, it's also starting to lead itself a little towards a take on the Joe Wood classic Industry Giant 2, which I'm sure some of you have played, but it's certainly one of my favourite transportation games. So that more or less wraps up everything that they revealed so far. I'll do probably another one of these. I've got my fingers crossed and my application in to join the beta, and as soon as they let me talk about it, I will do. But meanwhile, please chuck a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Stick a question or 2 in below, or a comment or an observation that you've made, or something I've missed, or something I've got wrong. It's all welcome, but keep it friendly. Subscribe if you've not done so already so you don't miss out on the next installment of this series. And hey, why not go check out my Train Fever stuff? People seem to think it's alright, as much as haphazard building is ever alright. Anyway, thanks for watching today. I'll catch up with you very soon. Cheerio!